I helped that company scale their e-commerce division over 900%.
Oh my
And
gosh,
so,
Ruthie, that's 900%.
yeah.
Stop the presses. That's amazing.
And social media is a container for your marketing strategy. The world is on social media. So we need to have a presence, but we can't let us consume us because it's not the only thing. It's just a piece of the strategy. People sitting on the beach and being like, oh, I work 2 hours a week and I'm great. And I have 500,000 followers. Like, okay, but where were you 5 years ago? What are all the steps that you took between now and then to get to where you are today? And I realized that I couldn't find it because I was meant to create it. And I was meant to create it for other women.
This might be one of those episodes where people are like grabbing pens and papers as fast as they can because I thought it was really, really powerful. Hey guys, welcome to episode number 188 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. You're going to be really happy you stopped by today because I am bringing you Ruthie Sterrett. She is a brand and marketing strategist, and she's the founder of the Consistency Corner, which is a content marketing agency that really helps small businesses understand how to do marketing like with some pretty serious strategy that's also a lot of fun. Now, you are going to love Ruthie pretty much right off the bat. Her story about her own expansion inside of corporate America is gorgeous. You're going to love her courage. She was given an entire marketing department. Oh, wait, she was the entire marketing department. And she was really honest and was like, guys, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out. It's just the epitome of confidence and courage. And I hope you enjoy that part of the story because it's going to have you know she knows what she's talking about. She learned all of this on the ground, and you are going to be blown away by the numbers she produced for that corporation. I actually completely interrupted her and was like, I'm sorry, what was that number again? She blew the lid off. And that's because she did it herself. She learned on the ground. You guys, it's like unbelievable street cred in marketing. And I love when we watch each other learn a skill like this. It's so empowering. And it's going to give you a lot of listening for Ruthie throughout the rest of the interview. You just trust her because she knows what she's doing. Now, my favorite part, because you know, I am not a social media lover. I use it. I'm a business owner. Of course, we've got to have a presence on there, but there's so much about it that makes my heart hurt. I don't love the time that it takes from entrepreneurs. I think there's so much we could be doing towards revenue producing tasks outside of social media. And Ruthie hit that dead on today. We went right at that topic, and she gives extraordinary tips and ideas on what to do if you are finding yourself sucked into the social media rabbit holes. She's going to give you tactics, ideas, tips, things you can start using today to get yourself out of that, and how you can start to create a strategy around all of your content that will use social media the way it's intended for business owners, but also gives you some freedom and some joy and a little bit of clarity around your best next steps when it comes to your marketing content. You're going to really, really enjoy. I would advise you to grab a pen and paper. You're going to want to use it in this interview. So pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Ruthie, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Yes, Sarah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. I am so a fan of what you have to say about social media and all the gooey goodness about stopping scrolls. But before we jump into that, and I know everybody just started to lean in and go, wait, what are they going to talk about? But before we jump into that, Ruthie, can you tell us a little bit, like, why is this what you do? Like, what had you start this business? What do you love about it? What does it fulfill for you? Tell us all the things.
Yeah, so I am a marketing and content strategist, and I had a background in retail. I was working in retail management, retail merchandising for many, many years. And people always told me, you should get into marketing. And I was like, I don't know anything about marketing. I don't have any experience in that. What are you talking about? And I knew that I eventually wanted to step out of traditional retail once I had kids in school with activities, you know, the nights, the weekends, the overnights. I knew that that was not the life I wanted with a family. So I actually had the opportunity to step into a corporate retail role in corporate merchandising. So I was kind of overseeing merchandising strategy for a small retailer, and had an opportunity to work with the marketing team really closely. And I knew retail and I knew people. And the marketing manager at the time had a marketing degree, but didn't know retail and didn't know people. And so we worked really closely together. And at the same time, I was actually digging into a side hustle and learning about blogging and personal brands and network marketing and just leaning in and all the things. And after about a year and a half, marketing manager left and the CEO gave me the opportunity to step into the marketing department. And I said, I don't know what I'm doing, but I will figure it out. And I figured it out and leaned in and just consumed all the content I possibly could around marketing strategy, brand strategy, and was able to use my experience in retail to support that brand in shifting their messaging away from the product, which was what had been their strategy, and shifting it more to about the customer. And I really helped make sure that we defined who is the ideal customer, what are their needs? What are our core values and how do we serve that customer? And over the course of several years, I helped that company scale their e-commerce division over 900%.
Oh my gosh, Ruthie, that's 900%.
Yeah.
Stop the presses. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wait, I know, and I want to get to the rest of the goodness, but my mind just exploded. You went from, I don't know what I'm doing, but I will learn, to a 900% increase.
Yeah. And there were other things going on in the world. The pandemic happened. So people were shifting to e-commerce and there was some business strategy decisions that were made around inventory and assortment and things like that.
Yeah, but
still, the marketing strategies that we have put in place, the foundation for the brand, the trust that we built with the customer, and just learning as we went and figuring it out. And so through my side hustle, had invested in a mastermind and started working with a coach, thought I was going to continue to lean into health and fitness coaching because I had this desire to help working moms. I didn't know what that looked like, but I knew I had this just purpose and, vision and mission of wanting to support working moms and living their best life. And as I was talking to some girls in the mastermind, they were like, give yourself some credit. You taught yourself how to do that and you were successful. Yeah. You can teach other people this. And it was like a light bulb went off. And I realized, oh, maybe that's what I am supposed to be doing. And so I quickly pivoted from a health and fitness coach to a marketing coach, and the content poured out of me. It was yes, this is what I am meant to be coaching and teaching. And I realized, so after I made that pivot, it was about 18 months later that I resigned from my corporate job. And I had been looking for another role for a while, interviewing, applying, trying to find something that would give me more of a work-life balance, help me support my family. And I could never find it. And what I realized is I wasn't meant to find it. I was meant to create it. And I was meant to create it. And I got that light bulb moment from the universe in that we were struggling with my son as he started kindergarten. It was a rough transition to kindergarten. We had to change schools. And in that moment that we made the decision to change schools, and I went to my boss and said, hey, I'm leaving every day at 3:00 because we now have a different school situation. I made that decision that if he said no, I was going to resign. And so in that moment, I decided, and I knew from the journey that nothing but my son was going to make me leave that job because I poured my heart and soul into it. I helped build the brand. I, went through the thick and thin of building during the pandemic, but it was time for me to spread my wings and do something else. So as we're sitting here having the conversation today, it was just about 1 year ago that I took on a full-time entrepreneurship role and was able to replace my corporate salary, going from no clients to a roster of clients and replacing my corporate salary within just a couple of months. And so I started the business way back when it was a lifestyle blog and health and fitness coaching to help working moms. And as it evolved, that continues to be my personal why, my own personal mission, in that I want to grow my business to be an agency to hire other working moms, women who want to use their zone of genius and their skills and their gifts, but also be there for their family and have that supportive environment and flexible schedule. And like I said, I realized that I couldn't find it because I was meant to create it, and I was meant to create it for other women.
I love that. I think that something happens to us as humans, right? When we grow people, once we pass that threshold of a life experience where there are now human beings in the world that we are responsible for, and we're ambitious, right? And we have skills and talents, everything changes. I mean, nothing is the same ever again, Ruthie. And I think, the name of my company, most people don't know this, but my LLC is actually Better Way Moms, because I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I think that there is this beautiful invisible thread for all of us women in business who happen to be moms as well. There is an invisible thread that kind of connects all of us, that this system, this world, the way this has been structured does not work for us.
Yeah.
So when one woman steps forward and said, I'm going to help create this, right? And this is your zone of genius around marketing, which, oh, by the way, if we're all going to start to create different ways to make this work for us, we have to know how to market, right? So it's like, you're providing all these keys and reasons and ways for people to do this. And then there are other people doing it in different ways. And there are other people using their expertise in different ways. And for all of us to start to create these new pathways, oh my gosh, it's such this gorgeous new delicate web that I think can become incredibly strong and start to become a safety net for so many women. And I'm so excited that you had the courage to do this, that you had the confidence after what you did, Miss, I don't know what I'm doing. Here's a 900% increase. Pandemic or no, that's freaking amazing. Right. But like developing all of this and going for it, it's just so exciting. And I just want to acknowledge you for actually not only hearing the call, but answering it and doing something with it and making it work for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it was incredibly scary. And I'm definitely the person who wants to I want to see the whole path. I want to know step 1, 2, 3, 4, 87, and 900. Like I want to know all the steps. And so when we made that decision, I didn't know all the steps. And as soon as I sent that letter of resignation, I mean, I felt like I was going to vomit for a month, because I just didn't know the steps, but it was that taking the leap and trusting that it would happen. And then I was able to be there for my son. I was able to help him through the transition into a new school. We were able to get him learning again and not, being sent home from school for getting in trouble and all of those things. And even now, I mean, I'm very early in the entrepreneurial journey. I still have to remind myself, like, you don't always have to know all the steps, but you got to just take the next right one.
Yes. I love that. And it's true. I mean, what other way is it going to happen? Right. And that's one of the things, I can't wait to get into social media with you, but that's one of the things I really dislike about social media, especially in the entrepreneurial space for women, is there's like this crazy vein through all of it. That's like, it's just magical. And I now make $1 million from the beach with a ball of twine. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, no, you don't. Right. So that whole, that image that gets put out there, the only thing we can do is consistently take the best next step.
Yeah.
And that's actually the way this works. And that is so much easier when you have people like you by your side, right? I mean, we cannot do this alone. And I'm so excited to hear more about your marketing coaching and how you help other people do this. But I'd really like to start with your belief that social media is not a content marketing strategy. I'm so excited to talk about this.
Absolutely. So when I stepped into the marketing role and I was trying to learn all the things and figure it out, and this was probably 2018 or 19, pre-pandemic. And I remember signing up for a free training with Jasmine Star. And everybody knows who Jasmine Star now is. She's a powerhouse guru, online business mentor, marketer, started as a photographer, grew her business. And I remember watching this free webinar with her and just being like, she makes it seem so easy. And she makes it seem like it's just like, you have a strategy for posts and you post and the business is just going to come to you. And I remember actually turning that off and being like, this is not what I'm looking for. And it was for the company I was at the time, it was about building the brand. It was about who are we? What is our mission? Who are we here to serve? And getting really crystal clear on that. And so that happened and we built a foundation and we got consistent with the messaging and we got consistent with a strategy. But then there was a time that my team was scaling. I think I had hired one person because I used to tell people I started out as the marketing department and eventually became the director of a real department, but it started out just me. And I was managing at the time 16 different social media profiles. And so I was creating content plus in charge of email marketing, plus managing relationships with brands, plus merchandising. I mean, all the things. Like it was a lot. And I would realize that I was spending hours and hours and hours on social media for work, but then I would come home and I would scroll for my side hustle, for personal reasons, and I would let half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour go by, and then put my phone down and realize I don't feel any better after doing that. That hour didn't add anything to my life. But I realized what happened was I kept picking up my phone, searching, seeking for the one funny meme, the one interesting tidbit, the one tip or tool that was going to change my life. Because every once in a while, you do run across one of those things on social media. And so I kept seeking it and searching it. And finally, at that point, I realized like, I can't do this anymore. But knowing that I was in a marketing role running 16 different social media profiles, I couldn't just throw my phone out the window and say like, I'm not going to be on social media anymore. I had to figure out a way to manage it without sacrificing my marketing strategy. And so I came up with a framework, and we'll talk about some of those steps. But before we get into the steps, I want to just kind of remind everybody, when we think about social media, I like to compare it to a coffee cup. So if you pick up a coffee cup, that coffee cup isn't coffee. It's a container for your coffee. And social media is a container for your marketing strategy. And there are other containers, such as email, such as your website, such as networking, such as podcasts, blogs. There are all sorts of other containers. And I do believe that business owners need to be on social media. The world is on social media. So we need to have a presence, but we can't let us consume us because it's not the only thing. It's just a piece of the strategy.
I love that. I love the idea of it as a container, not its own entity.
Yeah.
I think that because that just takes I want to say it takes the power away from it, but not really. But do you know what I mean? It takes the weight of it and like lightens it a little bit. I love that. Oh my gosh, Ruthie. Oh, so good.
And when we look at, a lot of people, I think what they find themselves doing is they compare themselves to their competition. And I can say that like, even in a corporate environment, like we did the same thing. Like I would sit in boardroom meetings and have people bring up, and I was in the fitness space, and they would be like, well, look at what Nike did. Well, look at what Lululemon did. Well, we are not Nike or Lululemon. Okay. We do not have billions of dollars. We do not have hundreds or thousands of locations. Like stop. And so we cannot compare our chapter 5 or chapter 10 to somebody else's chapter 100.
Yeah.
And so when you referenced at the beginning of our conversation, people sitting on the beach and being like, oh, I work 2 hours a week and I'm great. And I have 500,000 followers. Like, okay, but where were you 5 years ago?
That's right.
What are all the steps that you took between now and then to get to where you are today? And so somebody who just started their business 6 months ago or a year ago, you can't compare, because you're not seeing that entire history. And so sometimes those steps that those Insta experts are teaching, they don't work because you don't have the same equity that their brand has. And so you've got to figure out a strategy that works for you, which is different than the strategy that works for them.
I love that so much, Ruthie. And I also love what you just said. I hope this brings like listeners and watchers so much peace, right? And such like, it's like just a moment to get grounded there. You guys, corporations compare themselves to other corporations. Like you guys, everybody's doing this, right? And Lululemon is probably comparing themselves to Nike, and Nike's freaking out over Adidas. You guys, this is a thing. And Ruthie, you're absolutely right. I remember being in corporate America as well, and people would bring up other businesses' social media accounts. And it's like, what are we doing? How are we ever going to break an industry or actually put out something original if we're just watching everybody else who's watching us, who's watching? It's like, if we really want to do something amazing, I love what you said. Look at your own audience and look at your own marketing strategy. And can you just do that?
Yeah. And, so now this is a completely different topic. We can have a whole nother podcast on, but the use of AI. And quite honestly, yes, AI can save you tons of time, but AI is scraping content from other brands.
Correct.
And so we're just recycling and rehashing the same thing over and over again, which is quite honestly, the consumer's going to get bored.
They already are.
Like, I've seen this before, right? Yeah. They already are.
They already are. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. That's such a great perspective on that. And I think this is kind of a call for all of us to not be AI. Like, don't be the scraper of content from other people and you just regurgitate it. Really go inside and find your own mission, just like you did. Yeah. Where it's like, no, this isn't here. I'm going to create it. What if we
Yeah.
started doing that with social media too? So good, Ruthie. Gosh, so many nuggets there. I hope people are really, this might be one of those episodes where people are like grabbing pens and papers as fast as they can. Cause that was really, really powerful.
Yeah. So the first step as far as like getting a handle on it and not letting social media drain your energy and do what it was doing to me when I was running 16 profiles. And quite honestly, like today, now running an agency, I'm in the same boat. Like I have 12 clients, I have my own stuff. So I'm on the apps all the time. So the very first step that I want you to take is get your phone and look at your screen time.
Yes.
And be aware. No judgment. The number is the number. It is the number. It's okay. But let's be aware and let's ask ourselves, okay, if my phone is telling me that I'm averaging 3 hours a day on Instagram, how does that make me feel?
Just hurt my heart.
Right. And I mean, last week, I'm full transparency. Last week, my phone popped up and said, you averaged 7% less screen time last week for a total of 6 hours and 18 minutes a day. And
but it's your job though.
But it's my job.
Different.
It is my job. But that doesn't even include the time I'm looking at my computer. And so I have to ask myself, and I think every business owner has to ask ourselves, is that serving me? How is my energy? And if it's not serving us, then step number 2 is to try to lower the amount of time.
Yeah.
And so if that means we're spending time scrolling, that's okay. Like I read the news on my phone. I check up on my friends. I'm, whatever, but let's set a timer and let's use that time and then be done. Or let's gray out the apps during certain times of the day so that when we have those like 5-minute breaks and we think like, oh, I'll just scroll for a few minutes. Like, no. Do something else, right? Something more productive that makes you feel good.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I thought of when you said 3.5 hours or whatever it says is what could you get done in that time?
Yeah.
How many outreach, personal one-on-one outreach emails could you send? How many email campaigns could you write? How many clients could you connect with? How many old friends could you catch up with, like, in real life, or I don't know, God forbid, over the phone? Like that is so much time. That is 15 hours a week.
Yeah.
60 hours a month.
Yeah.
Like that's like a part-time job.
Yeah.
That is so much time. Like, oh my gosh. I think it is so critical that we know that number. I love that you just said that. Like, know the number, don't judge it, but actually start to ask questions about it.
Yeah.
What else could I do at that time? How could I lower that?
Yeah.
And there are so many of us, it's our job, right? Like we have an Instagram live that day, or we had to get something up because we're launching something. That's like the job, but that's very different from scroll, tap, tap. Scroll.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. And just being aware of that. And so what I find a lot of business owners will say, well, my number is really high because I was on my phone to post the reel or to do the thing. Sure. And I get that. But then how can we plan our content so that we're faster at creating content? And so that we're then, when we are creating, we're creating before we consume. And planning your content. I highly, highly, highly advocate for quarterly planning.
Wow, the whole quarter.
The whole quarter. And now for me,
that
doesn't look like creating an entire quarter at once, but it's creating a recipe and a framework to follow so that when I do sit down to batch either a week or a month, I don't have to think about it as much. And the creation process becomes faster. So for a quarter, I might map out what are my podcast topics going to be every week for the next quarter. Then, okay, for email marketing, when am I going to send emails? What's the intent of all of those emails? Right. Now for social media, how many times can I post consistently without burning out? And depending upon the season, it might be different. If I'm in a launch season, it might be 7 days a week. If I'm not in a launch season, it might be 4 days a week. So picking that cadence and then building a framework of like every Tuesday, I'm going to post a quote. Every Thursday, I'm going to post a reel. Every Friday, I'm going to post a photo with a story. So then when I sit down to create for a month, okay, every Friday, I'm going to post a photo with a story. I need to pick 4 photos and 4 stories. And that batching helps us get faster. And you can do that inside Google Business, like a Google Doc, or you can do it inside the Meta Business Suite, or you can do it in a platform like Later or Planoly, where you're not actually on your phone doing it.
Yeah, I love that idea. And I think it just sort of chunks it down, right? It's not so arduous. It's not this big, huge task, social media. Like, it's kind of reminding me, I really love productivity too. And it's like, guys, if you put in your calendar, write book really hard, like really hard. If you're like, outline first chapter or decide what the first 3 chapters are going to be. That's something you can actually wrap your head around. So I love that you just broke that down in the same way. Because if Friday is a picture and a story, well, I know how to do that. But if I have a task that says post social media 5 times this week, I want to stick my head under my desk. Right. It's like, that's too many things.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's really sort of the framework you were talking about of like creating content in a way in a quarter in advance. Like, is it, when you say a quarter in advance, is that like topics? Is it subject matter? Is it creating that pattern? How do you envision that when someone does that for a whole month?
Yeah, well, I think it depends on your launch calendar. And so that's the other thing that I always advocate for, is that you sit down and you create a launch calendar. And if you're, let's say you're a service-based business and you're like, well, I'm always launching, I'm always taking on clients, there's no open close. What do you mean? Then creating launches or creating campaigns around, let's say, Mother's Day or Memorial Day or 4th of July or back to school or whatever it is that depends upon your, your business calendar, but creating those kind of blocks and frameworks so that then when you create content, you can stick to a theme. And I find that themes and patterns like that really help our brains because it makes decisions faster versus just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and like, what am I going to talk about now? And the other thing that those campaigns can do on your calendar is they can help you think about the funnel, attract, nurture, and convert, and making sure that we have content that serves all 3 purposes. And that's one of the things that I do with my clients when we sit down and we plan for their bandwidth is we say, okay, what platforms or what containers are we using for attract marketing? What containers are we using for nurture? And what containers are we using for convert? And those containers, whether it's email marketing, networking, podcasts, blogs, social media, we pick a cadence that they can be consistent with. And I typically will tell my clients, if they think I can do 4 posts a week, okay, we're going to plan for 3. Because we're going to dial it back just a little bit so that we actually can batch and get ahead. And then if we have time to pop in something or jump on a trend that looks fun or something that we want to participate in, we've got the space to, but we're not giving ourselves that pressure of like all the things all the time. And, I definitely teach around organic content that long form content, whether it's a podcast, a blog, or a video, is like your anchor for your content. And a lot of business owners come to me looking for help with social media and they don't have a long form content container yet. And I say, okay, well, where can we start? Maybe it's starting with a long email or an email newsletter that's a little bit meatier than a social media post. But then what's cool about long form content is we can break it up and pull it into social media. And so then creating our social media becomes easier because we're repurposing work that we've already created. And long form content, once you get a year of long form content, you can start just resharing, reworking that same content versus reinventing the wheel and starting from scratch every single time.
Yeah. Okay. So it's sort of taking it on as, yes, another business task, but looking at how the entire marketing strategy is working together and how the different containers can support it. Yeah.
Yeah. And those themes, I remember being in retail management. I worked for Victoria's Secret for 15 years. And I remember once I stepped into marketing and campaign planning and things like that, realizing, every holiday 1, the theme was celestial and jewel tones. Every holiday 2, it was pinks and reds and bows. Every holiday 3, it was icy pastels and ready for spring. Like they were taking the merchandising plan and repeating it year over year. Every June, it was a strapless campaign. And so then you're not reinventing the wheel all the time. Now, you still are going to look around at the marketplace and say, does this make sense? But it gives you a framework to start with, which is just like having a recipe to cook from versus walking into your kitchen and looking at ingredients and being like, what am I going to eat? Like it just makes the decision-making that much simpler.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay. This is getting clear. It's getting clear. All right. So with all of this, let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, I'm starting to see how this could get a little bit better for me. I'm starting to see how social media is a container, but I'm having a really hard time pulling back my time. We said, let's say someone's jaw just dropped because they did look at their phone and they're like, oh my gosh, it's 4 hours a day. And they're like, how can they get more energy back? Like, what can they do to help actually set the phone down? Because I know we're talking about it, and I am a massive fan of this too, but I think a lot of people have a hard time in the moment actually figuring out how to make that happen. How can we help people do that? How can we help people stop scrolling, put it down, get their energy back, and get back to productive work?
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's three tips I'll share. Number one is the app limits or the screen time limits on your phone, which will gray out the apps when you've either reached the amount of time that you said you were going to use that app for. So like for me, I tell my phone that between Facebook and Instagram, I can spend 90 minutes a day. And it'll pop up and say, you've reached your limit for today. And I can ignore it. I can click a button that says, give me 15 more minutes or ignore for today. But it's that extra little reminder. And then also with the app limits, you can put in like, keep this app grayed out from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Oh, I love that.
So while I'm in my work day at my computer, I shouldn't be picking up my phone and looking at Instagram. Now, again, you can override it if you need to, but it's that extra reminder. And then my second tip, I had actually a friend share this. She puts her social apps in a folder on her phone, and she names the folder Time Sucks. And so every single time she opens her phone and picks it up and looks at it, it's a visual reminder of, do I really want to do this?
I love this so much. Oh my gosh. Cause mine are in a folder called social media, but I'm going to go change it. I'm going to go change it. That is awesome. Oh my gosh. I love it.
Because it's just that extra little reminder.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is ask for accountability from your partners. I will say every once in a while, like, I need a 5-day detox, or I need a 48-hour detox where I am not on the app at all, just to break the patterns. And so like I was sharing that with some girlfriends this week, and we were talking about having my phone, and I said, you pick it up out of habit. My friend was like, put a book on top of your phone. So then if you need a break, pick up a book and read for 10 minutes, and just help yourself break that habit. And I will sometimes even pop on stories and be like, all right, I'm posting a story, I'm sharing something with you guys, and now I'm going and putting my phone in the kitchen, and I'm not going to be on it for 12 hours. Like, I'm telling people and asking my community to help hold me accountable.
They'll be like, wait, you're on. It's only been 6 hours. You're
right.
Back. Yeah,
right.
I love it.
Right.
So
right.
Good.
Because sometimes we just need to break those habits to reset our intention and reset our thoughts around it. And then we can come back with that content planning mindset, that awareness around how frequently we're scrolling, using our timers more effectively, but it takes some breaking of the habits at first.
I love it. I think what's so great is as people go to break a habit, you need a pattern interrupter, right? And everything that you just mentioned interrupts. And that's what we need. It's so funny. You were just reminding me just this morning, my daughter's reading To Kill a Mockingbird, and she loves it so much. She's like in the book. And she was saying to me as I took her to school, she's like, gosh, reading a book is so cool because you totally forget where you are. And then you look up for a second and you're like, oh yeah, wait, this isn't real life. And I was like, much like your phone. And then I was like, I need to say that to me too. Like, hello. But it's this thing we need to interrupt, right? Or we can get sucked into a whole other world that perhaps we didn't intend to, right? It's like we go down those rabbit holes and all this crazy stuff happens, as opposed to writing the next email, or deciding when the next launch is going to happen, or looking at our revenue and deciding to make some decisions about how we can increase it. Or do we need to increase spending for a little bit in order to hit that goal? Like, that's like important CEO time that people are losing to, did you get the spring dress yet? Right? Whatever it is that you had no intention of looking at a spring dress right now, right?
Yeah.
So it is so great. Any way we can interrupt that. Ruthie, that is so, so helpful. So I know we have people listening and watching who are like, hold holy cannoli, how can I get me some more of Ruthie? I think you have a free gift for everybody listening today.
Yeah. So one of the things we mentioned was planning content and your containers around the funnel. And the attract strategy or the attract phase of the funnel and getting new eyes on your business is one area that I see business owners a lot of times forget to spend time on or not spend enough time on, and then wonder like, well, why am I not bringing in any sales? Well, we haven't nurtured our funnel and poured into it. So I've got a mini e-course of 10 epic ways to attract new eyes on your business for free, meaning we're not talking about ads or ad spend, but 10 things that you can do to get new eyes on your business. So you can get that at theconsistencycorner.com/attract. And There are quick 10 little lessons that I walk you through on the video, and you can decide which ones work for your business and which you'd like to incorporate in your quarterly content plan.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. We are going to have that linked in the show notes or underneath this video, depending on how you're enjoying your time with us today. Ruthie, this has just been wonderful. Thank you so much for dropping in, sharing your story with us and sharing amazing tidbits. There is now going to be a book or my to-do list on top of my phone at all times. So appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This is great.